My name is Calypso. Exactly 1 year ago on Christmas Eve, my Twisted Metal contest destroyed the City of Angels. Down below, life has come to a halt as survivors struggle to stay alive.
Calypso! Calypso, what have you done? What have you done?
With the city awash in flame, nothing left to destroy. I face a dilemma. Where will this year's Twisted Metal contest take place? 14 of the world's best combat drivers have already been chosen, ready to battle to the death in hopes of becoming the victor and claiming whatever prize their brave hearts desire. But where will the contest be held? Oh, the world will be my battleground. Paris, Hong Kong, even Antarctica. There will be no safe zones this year, no places to hide. In the next 24 hours, the entire world will know my name. They will see my beautiful work of art firsthand. No one will be safe. I promise you that. Good luck, driver. Welcome to Twisted Metal.
Welcome to episode 57 of the video game podcast, PlayStation Pals. I am your host, Nick, and I am joined by the minion to my outlaw, John. How are you doing today, John?
Tired. I don't know.
Should we cancel this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do this. I'm not vibing with it. I'm feeling great, Nick. Feeling good. Just need to shake off the cobwebs a little bit, probably.
Okay. All right. I'll help with that. I won't force you to bring the topic right here in the header this time because I got a few.
Good.
All right. The first one is we got an anniversary. It is the 15th anniversary of PlayStation trophies. They came out all the way back on July 8th of 2008, and so it has turned 15. And we don't like trophies, do we here?
Nick, trophies are probably one of the main driving forces for why I'm into video games as hard as I am. So I know they're silly. I know they're stupid. There's lots of people that don't give them any credence at all, which I 100% respect. It's a kind of a dumb reason to play games for any other reason than I just want to enjoy myself. But
right.
It just scratches, it tickles my brain in a specific way. And I remember pretty clearly the moment that trophies clicked for me. You know, my very first one was Resogun, so got that obviously pretty shortly after the PS4 came out, and then Rocket League just happened naturally, and I was like, you know what, let me look into these, and then it was just a deluge of games. It was, Alien Nation into Rayman Legends, into some weird things like the Deadly Tower of Monsters, which was a random PS Plus extra game back in the day, or Essentials, but trophies are important, man, at least to me, not to everybody, but they are an important part of the ecosystem for sure.
Yeah, do you remember when they were rolled out, or is that way too early for you?
No, I wasn't invested that much into the industry on this. Yeah. I was playing video games, but I wasn't following any of that stuff. So
yeah,
no, I don't remember that spot a lot.
Yeah, it was weird because obviously the PlayStation 3 had been out for a minute, so not a lot of games had them, and I remember games like Uncharted getting them retroactively after the fact. And other games like that, and it wasn't smoothly either. I believe they launched it, and then they had to quickly pull it back because it wasn't working to launch it again. So,
do you know the first game with trophies?
On my current account, it is Horizon for.
Oh, for you. So I meant the first game that got trophy support.
No.
Okay.
No.
So Super Stardust HG.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, that's very.
Which I have the Super Stardust portable one, so
Ooh.
Yeah. So take that, Nick.
But yeah, obviously we're both big trophy fans, and yeah, it's one of those things that you got to thank Xbox. This was birthed out of achievements, which whoever came up with that idea, very smart. Achievements were great, and Sony had to follow suit because again, it gamified a game. It was a way to extend out your love of video games. Like you said, if you cared, people care about their gamer score. People care about how many platinum trophies they got, and I just wish that there was a way in the current ecosystem to display them better.
Yeah.
Like that's the problem, is like your social page for your profile is very
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that I think needs to continue to grow, and hopefully Sony's not just like, oh, we're just going to leave it where it is, because there's benefits to that. And I wish they had maybe a little bit stronger of a say with some of the curation of trophy lists, because there also are just garbage trophy lists out there that, the developers are just, what are you thinking adding, you got to beat this game 5 times to get the platinum. It's like, I understand that they are a avenue to explore every single corner of a game, which is great. That's part of the reason why I do them, because then Elden Ring is a great example. I can feel confident putting that game down now, even though I know there's probably a little things I missed here and there.
Right.
But it's a good way to do that. But it'd be nice to maybe have a little bit more. I don't know, just curation there. But yeah, and figure out a way. If Sony really is wanting to do a mobile initiative, to make sure that the games that eventually come out from Savage Game Studios or whatever the case, that there is trophy support, and then that would maybe open up. Because as far as I know, there's no other way to gain trophies besides on just their consoles, right? There's there's currently no PC support for trophies through playing their games on Steam or anything like that. So hopefully getting a way to do that. But yeah, man, they feel pretty good when you get them, man. Popping a platinum trophy and something like Cuphead is a good thing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, again, it's just added value to games if you're into it. Like you said, you can just beat Cuphead, or you can really get into Cuphead and go for that platinum.
Yep.
You can just beat Neon White, or you can really get into Neon White and go for the platinum. So.
Yeah, and I think that's I would never advocate for somebody to go out there and be like, every game you play get the platinum. Like, that's stupid. But it's just I was.
You don't want to be Hakum?
No, not that guy looks so sad and tired. He for those who don't know, I think he's or at least at one point he was the current platinum trophy leader, and he had over 1,000. And it's just an insanity. But I don't know. I lost my train of thought. Hakum, his sad face popped in my brain, and it just wiped everything else. But no, trophies are great. I love them. I will continue to play with those at the forefront of my mind. That was a pretty lengthy introduction we just did too. By the way.
Yeah. See, did I shake the cobwebs off?
You did.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
Trophies will do that.
And just one more smaller announcement is that Evan Wells, the co-president of Naughty Dog, studio that we love very much so, in which he shares it with, I'm just having the biggest blank.
Druckmann.
Yeah, Neil Druckmann, of course, of Last of Us and Uncharted fame. They kind of ran Naughty Dog together, and now Evan Wells is leaving. It's going to just leave Neil Druckmann on top of all the 1,000 things he's doing already between the Last of Us television show and the Last of Us multiplayer project and whatever other games they're working on. He's going to run this studio too, so...
Yeah, I'm down with that.
Yeah.
I mean, first and foremost, congrats to Evan Wells. I can't think of probably anybody in the industry who could have a better just 25-year career. When you look at that guy's profile, that he was the top, one of the top dogs to ship the entire Uncharted franchise, all the everything from The Last of Us. I'm not sure what Naughty Dog games go back to his very, very early tenure, but it could even be something like Crash Bandicoot 3, Crash Team Racing, stuff like that. But obviously had a very good eye for high quality and leadership at that studio, and it's always bummer to see these kind of guys go, but with Druckmann at the helm, there's absolutely nothing to worry about. I don't expect this to change any of the output from Naughty Dog.
No,
which is
not
great.
at all.
So.
It just, like I said, that's why it's just a small thing. It's
he just gets to ride off into the sunset.
Yeah, very wealthy. I'm
very
sure.
wealthy. Yeah, yep.
So good for him.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a lot to talk about. So let's get into the show. This is how it works. John and I both bring 3 things to talk about. It can be a video game we're playing. It can be a news item. It can be a topic we feel like talking about. It can be an email to PlayStationPalsPod@gmail.com if you want us to talk about something specific. Or it can be a Twitter DM at PSPalsPod. Or it can be a comment on our YouTube page at PlayStation Pals. Any of those things.
You can tell Nick that items don't belong in Smash Brothers. At any of those things.
Apparently I'm right, because nobody said otherwise. So.
Oh, okay. You're going to spin that in your direction. That's fine.
So any of those things, we bring it and we talk about it for a total of 6 things. We like to keep things concise on this show, unless we're talking about PlayStation trophies. Then we get a little bit off. But that's how the show works. So, John, you're going to kick things off. Let's do it.
All right. So, much to probably Nick and I's chagrin, something big happened this week. Have to talk about it. But hopefully this is going to be one of the last times we have to talk about it.
I think so.
But FTC, Microsoft, Activision, Blizzard, the saga seems to be coming to a close. This week we did finally get confirmation from the judge out in California on their decision for if Microsoft is allowed to purchase Activision Blizzard, and they basically said yes, they are. To give a little bit more context, the FTC was trying to file for a preliminary injunction. Please don't ask me what that means. All I really know is that if it was granted, they would put a severe kink into this whole thing at the point where it would have put the kibosh on the whole thing, because there was this July 18th date floating around that they needed to try and get this thing closed by. So really they were coming in at the skin of their teeth, but they did not grant the injunction, which means that the CMA out of the UK is really the only governing body that has put a severe kink in this. So I would expect this to go forward at this point. But just going to read a quick little quote from Judge Jacqueline Scott Corley, who oversaw the case. And this is what she says, end quote. Microsoft's acquisition of Activision has been described as the largest in tech history. It deserves scrutiny. That scrutiny has paid off. Microsoft has committed in writing, in public, and in court to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation for 10 years on parity with Xbox. It made an agreement with Nintendo to bring Call of Duty to Switch, and it entered several agreements for the first time bring Activision's content to several cloud gaming services. This court's responsibility in this case is narrow. If it is to decide if, notwithstanding these current circumstances, the merger should be halted, perhaps even terminated, pending resolution of the FTC administrative action. For the reasons explained, the court finds the FTC has not shown a likelihood it will prevail on its claims this particular vertical merger in this specific industry may substantially lessen competition. To the contrary, the record evidence points to more consumer access to Call of Duty and other Activision content. The motion for the preliminary injunction is therefore denied. Yeah, I know you're bored, Nick, but this is important. Activision Blizzard has also reacted to the decision from Bobby Kotick, unquote, our merger will benefit consumers and workers. It will enable competition rather than allow entrenched market leaders to continue to dominate our rapidly growing industry. I have a couple thoughts, Nick, I know we just kind of want to move on from this, but I'll give you the floor first if you have anything to say before I drone on here for just a little bit.
Not really, because yes, this is going to go through, but what's going to happen next is kind of still up in the air. Like what is going to happen to specifically Call of Duty, what's going to happen going forward with all their games. But since, kind of every studio on the Blizzard side especially has kind of shot their shot, that's like Overwatch 2 is out, Diablo 4 is out. It's going to be a while before we can be like, well, what's happening to Overwatch 3 in theory? What's happening to Diablo 5 in theory, which is their Xbox exclusives is what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. But it was just too early to know, and this Call of Duty deal with Sony is still existing until 2025. So the Tom Warren of The Verge was quick to point out that they cannot put Call of Duty games on Game Pass until 2025. So, yeah, I don't know. It just is what it is. It's interesting, the internet comments on this, because, of course, it's... I can be with, if you're playing on Xbox, it's great, right? To have more games that are going to end up on Game Pass. But I really hope that's all you're kind of rooting for, because if you're just rooting for Microsoft to become a giant tech giant, what is going on? Because I don't know if you saw this, John, that the Wikipedia page for the FTC was changed very briefly. They changed their logo to the PlayStation logo. They changed the website to Sony.com, and they said they changed the agency executive to Jim Ryan very briefly, and of course it got changed back. But there's some screenshots out of their Wikipedia page being changed to the Sony brand. But
that does, yeah. I mean, even if it was very brief, it just shows that there is a level of toxicity, obviously, with this whole thing that will never go away. But Yeah, I agree with you, Nick. I come from a place of fortunate enough that I don't really care about these games. So it's not like anything is. I'm really worried about any of the Call of Duty-ness or things coming to Game Pass or unevening the playing fields, anything like that. I simply want to bring about the point that I worry for the industry. And I'm going to kind of make a little correlation here. And I know this might come across as doom and gloom. And, if you've been listening to this podcast, you might know I am a little bit of a pessimist. But the industry that I think I want to point people to look at is the current state of the movie industry. And this year specifically, I think, is kind of bringing out a lot of things to the forefront. And it's kind of scaring a lot of people. This summer we've had blockbuster after blockbuster flop and flop and flop. To see these budgets that have grown out to uncontrollable, amounts, where I think I saw something that the last 2 Jurassic Park movies cost over $800 million together to make, which is just absolutely insane. People aren't going to the theaters as much anymore to make back these costs. And industries are really, I think, having to figure out what are we going to do to keep costs down, to keep profits where they need to be. And I think you can really draw a very straight line to streaming services and what that's done to the industry as a whole. Not a full, you can't blame them fully, but when I think of when I was growing up and how these movies would come to theaters and we would all get excited for them and we would all go see them and it would be a big spectacle. And we knew we wanted to go see them because they weren't going to come to DVD for a year. They weren't going to come to any streaming services. If we wanted to see them, we had to go see them. And I was happy to do so because, I'm going to put the onus on myself as the consumer to seek these things out and go see them and support the crew and whatever that I like. And I worry that what we're going to start seeing is just a reduction in the amount of resources and things that are being pumped into these projects, because they're going to start saying, okay, well, maybe we should just start focusing on getting things onto streaming. If people are going to not go see Indiana Jones in theaters because we think it's going to come to Disney Plus in 3 months, is that going to start affecting the product? Are actors and movie producers and directors and these people that have, a say in these products, are they going to start saying, well, I'm just going to sign up for this X project because it's going to come to streaming. I'm going to get my slight check and I'm going to move on to the next project and not really pour a lot of thought and passion into something. I look at Netflix, right? And yes, Netflix will create The Marriage Story, Roma, these high quality movies, that might not be for everybody, but there's a level of quality to them. But that's not their main initiative. Their main initiative is content. Put more things on there. I don't care if they're good. I was just looking at some of the movies that came to the service in the past year, and there was one called, I wrote it down here, The Last Thing He Wanted. Have you ever heard of that, Nick? No. The Last Thing He Wanted. Starring Anne Hathaway, Ben Affleck, Willem Dafoe. Got a 4.0 on IMDb, and it's an espionage bullshit movie that I guarantee if streaming services did not exist, that these people would have, hey, I'm going to go for a project that's actually going to be something, that's actually going to be a film of high quality, and that we're going to put into theaters because we believe in it. And I think there is a direct comparison to how the industry is starting to trend that way in the movie industry, and I worry that video games will start going the same direction. The reason that PlayStation is successful is because they believe in their products. They put the money behind them. They put the resources in to get profit, yes, but also to just not, to not just try and suffocate the other side of the aisle with just inundating with here's the next thing, here's the next thing, here's the next thing, here's the next thing. And Microsoft has shown that they don't do a good job fostering good development projects. They don't know how to manage the studios they have. They don't have a good eye for what I think people want and what's going to be popular or what's going to be a good quality item. And if you're going to start coming out here saying, well, we're just going to bring Call of Duty everywhere. Okay, you guys know that if you bring it to Switch, it's going to have, and you want parity, it's going to be the worst version for everybody then. If that is truly what your directive is.
Well, it'll be a cloud game.
Sure, but we're starting to make sacrifices. We're starting to, as opposed to just, this, and I know this comes from a place of entitlement because I am fortunate enough that I can buy the video games I want. But I don't think I'm alone in saying I would rather have 3 games of extremely high quality that I maybe have to pay a little bit more for than 30 games that all are much less than that. Like, it's not even close in my mind. And I just worry that most people out there are just so short-term focused, so like this TikTok brain where I just got to go to the next thing, next thing, next thing, what's the next thing, what's the next thing, what's the next thing, instead of like trying to curate and find special projects and special things that like are coming from people with passion and heart behind it, as opposed to dollar bills and just this quick needing to churn out the next thing. You know, it's an opportunity cost. And I don't believe Phil Spencer when he says this is good for the industry. I don't believe Bobby Kotick when he says this. I think they're just simply saying the things that they need their shareholders to say. And I just hope that it's not the direction of the industry as a whole in the future, and that Sony is going to look at it and hopefully they don't say, well, we have to keep up, so we're just going to buy everything too. And that's the only way we can compete. It's not healthy. I don't like it. Again, I'm coming from a place of privilege that I don't care about these games. Because I guess, yeah, they are going to come to PlayStation. That's all good. But I don't like this future. And I think anybody defending the purchase from hey, it's good for gamers standpoint is not in tune with what the reality is. Game Pass is not viable. They've said as much. It's not the same thing for these big companies to just get a one-time check from them. There's a reason that the games that are coming day and date to Game Pass are Rainbow Six Extraction, that are Outriders, that are Wolong, Lies of P. These are fine games, but they're not the type of games that a developer or publisher has the confidence in to put onto the market to get their money back and more, because they know that they released a high-quality game. They said, well, it might sell 500,000. Maybe we'll just take the money from Microsoft and that's fine. And Microsoft can be like, look at all these day and date games. But like, is there ever going to be a scenario where like a high quality third party game that is actually of worth is going to want to take that deal? Because if it is of worth, it's going to get more money hand over fist just from basic sales. And it's just, I see a dimmer future with this type of model. I would urge everybody out there who truly cares about games to pay for them. Like, it is what it is. I don't think you can have your cake and eat it too in this specific industry. And if you do, get ready for Game Pass to be $50, because that's the only way that you would be able to have these level of the quality there as well as the ease of access. And I for one am a little disappointed. I'm trying not to analyze it through a Sony versus Microsoft thing. I am obviously a Sony guy, but I just think of my last point here, Nick. I'll wrap it up. Is I just found out that Baldur's Gate 3 is being held back from Microsoft, not for really much of an exclusivity standpoint, but because Larian Studios is unable to get that game to perform on Xbox Series S, and Microsoft has an ironclad rule that they can't release one for Series X without S. And if that's already come to fruition and we're going to start having to deal with the Nintendo Switch for all Call of Duty games, as a Call of Duty player, do you truly want them to have to potentially sacrifice their vision for what they can achieve? And yes, like you said, Nick, it could be a cloud version, but like I think you're starting to already make sacrifices and compromises. And when you see these companies of this size and magnitude get that much control, it's inevitably going to start affecting quality, and we'll see. We'll see what happens of it. But I don't think it's good for the industry, and I'll leave it at that.
Hey, I'm still here.
I told you I was gonna rant.
Yeah. Oh wow. I don't. Whew. Boy. Yeah.
What movies are you excited for to see, Nick? You excited to see Oppenheimer, Barbie, and Mission Impossible, or are you excited to go see some garbage?
All right, so let's boil this down. So, if I'm to clarify, you are afraid of a project that's incubated, created, and let's leave it at AAA, because I don't think Game Pass will be fine for any indie games.
For sure.
I don't think smaller projects would be fine. But let's say Bethesda's next project, let's say Elder Scrolls 6, that will be potentially incubated, produced with the mindset that you're going to appear on Game Pass. You aren't going to be looking for sales. We've brought this up before, right? Like you're not looking to sell. You don't want you're not looking at a $20 million selling game. Mm-hmm. You're looking for X amount of subscribers, X amount of engagement on Game Pass, and how will that affect that product? And that's a good question.
I think in that specific example, I think there's a very real possibility that when they're getting ready to ship that game and Microsoft says, hey, we need this to come to the service this year because if we don't, it's going to affect our subscriber counts, right? They're going to say we don't have a big tentpole item. So they're going to start maybe sacrificing their vision, things that they wanted to put in their game so that they can just hit these dates. That's just kind of what I start to see with that. I think Redfall is a perfect example. When that game came out, there was many people saying, oh, whatever, it's a Game Pass game. It's fine. That's not acceptable to me. Like that should not be a rationalization for a game of that studio, of that. Like I don't know this for a fact, but I would say that if Arcane was completely independent at that point, they would have delayed it again. They would have made sure it was a little bit better.
It's hard to say.
It's hard to say, but I get that feeling.
And so many of the big AAA games, as we've seen, were developed before Game Pass was a thing. So it's hard to say like a start to finish game that's going to be designed for Game Pass. That probably Fable will be one. But a lot of these projects were announced before that or worked on before that, so it's hard to say. But
well, it's important to note too that I think there will be a difference with something that is going to be Xbox/Microsoft exclusive as opposed to something that is, third party, right? Like for Call of Duty being the prime example right now, it's just like, they're going to have different metrics and things they have to hit, and if they have to bring something to Switch, how do you not sacrifice for that? How do you not do it? I'm not a developer. I don't know these questions. I'm trying to think about the scenario, and it's just, oh, it's so good. 150 million more people get to play Call of Duty. But if you're a Nintendo Switch owner, you probably have one of the other consoles. I think they just did a study that said 50% of PlayStation owners own a Switch. You're not going to want to play Call of Duty on that thing. That's not what this is for. And so to put the veil of this is great for gamers behind something like that, it just screams to me quantity over quality. And I'm very much a quality over quantity guy in any aspect of my life, anything of it. I'm a snooty movie watcher because I just don't have time to watch something that's just, slapdash put together, whatever. If I'm going to sit down and watch a movie, I'm going to I want it to be something that I know is going to have the level of quality that I'm hoping to get, and I don't think Microsoft is going to keep that in the forefront. I think they're going to just keep the content model because that's the only model we've seen work for a streaming service, video game, movie, whatever related. It's just you need the content, and it's just worrisome, And if I don't know, I don't know. I'm feeling I'm getting probably lost in the weeds here, but it's just. Long story short, man, I don't know. I feel like it's not going to be good long term.
I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
And we'll see what you say when Sony announces they bought Square Enix, because that's going to happen later this year. I have an inkling that is 100% happening later this year. So we get to go through this round table all over again.
Yeah, I know it's hard, and it's hard not to start defending these things without sounding like a Sony apologist or a fanboy, because it's I don't think the amount of money that Call of Duty brings in is not even close to being able to compare to Final Fantasy. We just saw that Final Fantasy, Square Enix is more than just Final Fantasy, but that's their big thing, right? They just sold their 180th game. Grand Theft Auto 5 in and of itself has more than that, that entire franchise. And so, I don't think it can be understated. Sony doesn't. I don't know. I can't defend it in that way. Because I'm defending one giant corporation versus another giant corporation. It's
right.
They both suck. We shouldn't root for either of them. But right. I don't know, man. It's big capitalistic, type shit always freaks me out.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Yeah. I mean, just. Another point that you mentioned about just Microsoft managing its studios, which we know has been a problem up to this point. Can they get this giant ship steered right to where they have big budget games every month or several times a year, 3 to 4 every year, which they've struggled to do big time. None last year. If it wasn't for Starfield, they'd been fucked this year. And then there's a Forza game again. I hate to qualify but
like Forza,
just
Gears,
like Gran
and Halo
Turismo.
almost
It's
don't
just
count
like they're just kind of like a niche. So it's it's hard to be yes, it's Forza Motorsport. It's probably going to be incredible, but
if you're not into it, you're not into it.
Yeah, it's not going to sell consoles one way or the other. But
it's just I was thinking movies like The Gray Man, right? Did you watch The Gray Man, that movie that came to Netflix?
No.
It's that movie was made for streaming services, and apparently it's trash. I hope we don't go down that same path.
Yeah.
Just
we'll see. Again, it's we don't know what's going to happen with all of this. We don't know how it's going to impact Sony. Again, I would just assume that everything's going to be exclusive going forward when sequels to games come out. Maybe Call of Duty will be like Minecraft. It'll just be unique enough and they may just make so much money that it's just dumb not to. Sure. Well, if you want to play on PlayStation, have to buy a physical copy, but we'll have the Game Pass version on our platform, and that might be enough. I would think that's enough, but because so then you're getting both audiences. But we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see.
I don't trust Phil Spencer.
I
don't trust him.
But in the story of Call of Duty, we don't know because again, pre-existing deal with Sony, so no moves on that front till 2025. So.
All right. Well, yeah. Hopefully, we don't have to talk about it again. I will say that the FTC did appeal the decision, so that's going now. But also, the deal was supposed to close by the 18th. The NASDAQ has already said that they're going to pull the shares off for Activision Blizzard. So it seems like it's going. It's just more governmental red tape. I'm sure that.
And that will be announced by the time you listen to this. I'm sure that the appeal one way or the other, but it's not looking good.
No.
So.
Could you imagine if just the appeal went through? What?
That would
it's not going to happen.
That would be another interesting part of this whole timeline, with the CMA stuff. It was
pretty sure that would start people would civil war, PlayStation versus Xbox. We just have to go to war at that point.
Sure. Speaking of Civil War, let's move on to our next topic because we got a new game announcement. If you remember all the way back in October of 2022, Marvel and EA announced that they signed a multi-collaboration deal to release at least 3 titles in a single-player action-adventure category. And up to this point, we only had the one. We know of an Iron Man game coming from Motive, who worked on the Dead Space remake that John and I love so much, and Star Wars Squadrons. But they announced the second game of that trilogy, and that is going to be another Black Panther game. No, not the Captain America Black Panther game coming from Skydance New Media. They're going to be making their own Black Panther game. And this is going to be coming from the newly founded Cliffhanger Games located in Seattle. And it is going to be led by Kevin Stevens, who came from Monolith Productions. He worked on the Shadow of War series. So he's got some Lord of the Rings chops under his belt. But, John, what do you think of this new announcement? No footage, no screenshots, nothing. This is more of a recruiting effort, it looks like, because they had a recruit link in the announcement. So, what do you think? Are you ready for more Black Panther?
Yeah, I mean, I'm intrigued. I'm more probably intrigued about the project itself than excited to play the game. What I mean by that is, it's always exciting when a new studio pops up, especially when it's under the umbrella of one of the major players, right? Like EA recently has done a very good job with some of their studios that they own. Obviously you think of Respawn, DICE, these kind of studios. Respawn is obviously their crown jewel right now. But, can EA foster another team that's going to be really good? I don't know. We'll see. That being said, Black Panther, I don't know a ton about the character. I've seen the first movie. I didn't watch the second one. But he does seem like a character that would lend himself very well to a third-person action-adventure type of video game. I kind of envision almost an boots-on-the-ground Spider-Man kind of game where he has that same fluid, I can bounce off walls, I can leap over cars, I can, it's going to be a fun way to just move through an environment. So, if they kind of nail that feeling and have some cool abilities, obviously he's just a acrobatic, flipping around crazy man. So again, I think he will play a lot similarly to Spider-Man. But in terms of, my statements on Marvel are known to the show. I wish it wasn't Black Panther. It's really weird to me that there's 2 Black Panther games in development at the same time. But, I'm sure it'll be fun, as much as I don't care for, Marvel and Star Wars media at the time right now. Video games almost can be completely separated from that because as long as it's fun, it could be a piece of shit dressed up as a cat, and that's Black Panther or whatever. It doesn't matter as long as it's fun. So, yeah, I like the Lord of the Rings game, so it's a good team to do it.
Yeah, and the interesting part of this too is also EA's pushing pretty hard on single player games again, which is nice. It was nice when they were doing Mirror's Edge and Dead Space and what's the hell one? You went through
Dante's Inferno.
Dante's Inferno, yes. So they used to do this, back when Rick Otel. Oh boy, I'm going to butcher his name. Whoever ran EA at the time. But
Rick Otero?
It was Ricotello.
Oh, okay.
And they kind of moved away from that, went harder on, their bread and butter, FIFA, Madden, and all that, and, Apex Legends and whatnot. But
was it they were the company that said that EA or single player games are dead, right?
Yeah.
Aren't they the ones that said that? Okay.
Yeah. So it's nice to see this big push. They got the Iron Man game. They got whenever it comes out, the Dragon Age Dreadwolf. They have this game coming.
And they got Hazelight too.
Yeah, Hazelight from It Takes Two fame, which we'll talk about later. And so it just seems like it's cool to see them push back in this direction, that we're going to get more meaty single-player games. And, Marvel's a good place to go.
I mean, I hope that's EA's plan. I mean, I've always felt like, let me take a step back. We recently realized or figured out that they're splitting EA, right? There's basically the sports section and then there's the other section. And I think that's a really smart move because I would love it if, we're just like, okay, we have our FIFAs and our Maddens, and that's just our money-making machine. It gives us all the money we need. But then, all of our other side of the business focus on single-player stuff. Like, that sounds great to me. Mm-hmm. So hopefully maybe that is their internal, thinking, and they can just kind of keep making money there.
Just think about last week, we did our top 10 PS5 games, and we added 2 EA games.
Yeah, which is
Jedi
weird.
Survivor and Dead Space. So...
Mm-hmm. And It Takes Two was on it before we bumped it out. So
exactly.
EA is it's funny because they were at one point the worst company in the world, which is still silly to me that I think they were the worst over other companies like Nestle and other things that are damaging ecosystems. But they've come back a long way. So I kind of have high expectations that this will be at least a very high quality title.
Yeah, for sure. But again, light on details, but. If you think about the Shadow of War series, a third-person action game like John mentioned with Spider-Man is probably, with Arkham Combat, is probably very similar. You'll be very floaty. You'll have, minimum input, big impact, as all these superhero games have had of late. So,
do you think it'll be? It's got to be teen rated, right? It's a teen, yeah. Yeah. Well, at least we're getting our mature rated Wolverine game.
And I'm sure, I mean, again, this seems very early announcement. I bet you this is at least 4 years from now. So
2026 at the earliest. For sure.
So,
all right.
Let's move on.
You ready for me to stay pessimistic, Nick?
Yeah.
Yeah? You love pessimistic me. All right. So there's a little show coming out soon that I think Nick was starting to get worried that it just wasn't going to happen because Sony decided they didn't want to release a trailer for it ever. But we did finally get a nice 2-minute meaty trailer for the upcoming Twisted Metal show starring Anthony Mackie. I'm just gonna start right off the top, Nick. What'd you think of the trailer? You know, it kind of showed a little bit more of, you know, obviously Anthony Mackie's character, show a little more of the humor, kind of what the setup is gonna be. What'd you think?
Some of the other actors involved. You got Stephanie Beatriz, Nev Campbell. What's the other guy? Thomas Hayden Church. You got to see some of the car combat. You got an expansion of the humor that they're going for. It's definitely, again, they used another 90s song to cover this, so it's going to be set in the 90s. It is not following the similar script of the normal Twisted Metal games. As far as we know, there's no Calypso who will give you whatever you want if you win his tournament.
I don't know. I kind of feel like Nev Campbell's that. Like, because she says, if you could wish for anything, what would you want? In the trailer. Like, it's not going to be Calypso, but I feel like that's her character. Like, that's who she is.
Well, they don't list her as Calypso, unfortunately.
I could see her being the bad guy, quite honestly.
Sure,
like the main
for
bad
sure.
guy.
Yeah. But it does look fun. It looks better than any Twisted Metal TV adaptation has any right to be. You know, it has the star power. It looks like, you know, there's a bunch of car combat. Is it good? I don't know. Will I have fun watching it? Yes, probably. I think I know John cannot tolerate bad movies, but I can find the fun in them. So you know.
Yeah,
I think it'll be fine.
I wrote down some positives and negatives, and so you know, my negativity that I will have, just know that comes from a solely me place.
Okay.
You know, analyzing the trailer, I agree. I think it looks surprisingly high quality. Definitely higher budget than what I was kind of anticipating. Doesn't take itself too seriously. That's obviously key for something like this. But I don't think that was, you know, anything unexpected with the Zombieland and Deadpool writers attached. I appreciated the over-the-top violence. You know, there were some Sweet Tooth scenes. Like I have a feeling when I'm watching it, I'm just going to be like, get me back to Sweet Tooth. I want to see more Sweet Tooth. You know, so it's nice that they have that. Because, you know, once you start to limit violence and that kind of stuff, you start to compromise vision. So I'm glad they went there. And I think it's a great compliment to The Last of Us. I think, you know, with that being the first big show that came out, you know, it's very drama focused. It's heavy. It's sad and all that good stuff. And you know, goes after a certain demographic. I think this one is doing a very good job of not having a lot of overlap with that. But, you know, it's a good Venn diagram, right? Of that stuff. So I think that's all good. I can't stand the jokes. You know, some of the negatives here. I can't stand the jokes. You know, there's a part early in the trailer where he's driving around a mall and he's like, you know, there's all this explosions and chaos happening and he's just chill as a cucumber in his car and he goes, ooh, they have a Foot Locker, when he sees like a little thing. or you know, or Nev Campbell making a joke about, you know, you could have anything you want. And, oh, I want some 2-ply toilet paper. And she goes, I can do better. And he goes, 3-ply? And I just, you know, I can't take that kind of stuff if that is all you're really trying to offer. So I hope that they're still saving some of the best humor because, admittedly, I did think that Deadpool was funny. I liked Zombieland. So, like, I should dig it. But, you know, it's just got a couple things for me that I don't like Anthony Mackie. I think he's a bad lead. I don't think he has the charm or the funniness that either he thinks he does or executives think he does. So I'm not thrilled with him as the lead. I like Stephanie Beatriz. So we'll see. I think it's going to be received well. I just don't think it's going to be specifically for me. So we'll leave it at that. I think it'll be fine.
Yeah. I definitely recommend, if you're listening, to check it out. It's pretty wild. Like I said, it's pretty surreal that this property is getting a television show. You know, Last of Us, okay, yeah, we expected that. It's made to be a TV show.
The second one is Twisted Metal.
Yeah, the second one being Twisted Metal is really out there. And I don't know. I think I might like this probably more than I should. Yeah. Given everything involved. But
just don't be too much like Fast and the Furious, please. Like I feel like I have more faith after this trailer that it won't be, that it'll be its own thing. Yeah, I don't know. Just jokes. The jokes were even from the last trailer with the thong song joke that they had. It's just like it's also bad to me. But
so yeah, and we're gonna find out very shortly because it is July 2 weeks away.
27th, right?
Yep, the 27th. So Yeah, we're definitely gonna watch it and bring it to the show for sure.
Yeah.
It'll just be like The Last of Us. We'll bring it every week.
Do you know how long have they said if episodes are 30 minutes or 45? Do you know?
Oh, I don't. It's streaming. Who knows? I bet you it's 30 minutes.
I bet it's 30 minutes. Usually comedies are that.
Yeah, and I think it's 10 episodes. So.
Yep, it is.
And so buckle up.
Okay. Do you see that's like a double thing there? Buckle up, right? Right. Yeah, I don't know how long there, but
All right. Well, let's move on back to our check-in of the big summer release, Final Fantasy XVI. Now, John, let's get your side first. Let's get an update. Do you have any new to add?
No, I've played about 20 minutes since last week. No, in actuality, I've probably played about another. Sorry if I just came really far into the mic there, and I was really quiet before. But I've probably put about another 2.5 hours in. I've had a very heavy family week, so it just didn't work out with that. But more of the same. You know, I'm still.
Yeah.
The percentage says I'm 50% of the way through the main story at about 24 hours, but Nick's shaking his head.
I don't think you are.
So, but that's just what it's telling me.
Yeah.
So it's probably just based on there's 36 missions. You're on number 18. You're 50%. So
Right.
We'll see.
Right.
But,
Yeah, it probably is.
so no, I'll let you take most of it, Nick, because I really haven't been able to. I haven't even fought another icon or anything like that.
Sure.
So.
Sure. Yeah. So I have finished the game. I have completed it, saw the credits roll, and got that final trophy. Not the platinum trophy, because that's insane. That requires you to play the game twice. But the final trophy, story over. I unlocked New Game Plus. I unlocked Final Fantasy, the hardest difficulty for it. And before I get into my spoiler-free review, John, I was going to ask you, what is a Final Fantasy game?
Good question. Final Fantasy game is almost always revolving around a core group of characters, right? A party, so to speak, that has some big story involving the world at large, where magic is going to definitely be involved. You're going to have specific elements attached to it, your chocobos, your Moogles, your cactars. Those things are usually in every one of them. You got your Sids. But really, I think it kind of, for me, comes down to just maybe the vibe of the world. Like, you know, like there's always crystals or some sort of just like, I don't know. It's almost like this intangible thing that you kind of just feel, because this one inherently with the combat, you know, is not traditional Final Fantasy, but I would still argue it, you know, between the enemies you're facing and the magics that are being used, it still has that feel to it. Obviously, the summons are a big telltale sign of Final Fantasy, but you know, it's interesting because they change way more than you'd think from entry to entry. But up until this point, it's one of the things that have kind of carried through was the turn-based combat. So it's kind of stepping away from that feels a little bit less, I think. But no, I still think it's mostly like just the core group cast of characters, probably.
Sure. Yeah. So, to launch off that's kind of where I wanted to take my review, is like, what is a Final Fantasy game? And I really think that it is a high budget Japanese role-playing game. Like it gets tons of money put into it because it's a very well-selling franchise. And yeah, it has all the little things, the Chocobo, the spells, Cura, Firaga, the unique monsters, big summons, unique characters, all of that. And this game does it in spades. It has all of that. All of that is present. The presentation, the music, it's incredible. There's not a lot of games out there like this, and definitely not PS5 exclusive games like this. This is a standout for the console, a standout for Japanese RPGs. The combat is fantastic, as we talked about in the show. I don't think I need to cover any of those points, but as I finished the game, it was lacking in a few areas, including the party that you mentioned. Like, I think this is probably one of the weakest parties I've ever played in a Final Fantasy game. Excluding Torgal, excluding Cid, they're great, but that's it. There's no really standouts as far as, I do like Gav. Jill is horrible, as we mentioned, but there are other characters. I'm curious to get your thoughts when you reach them, how you feel about them, but they're very weak compared to other Final Fantasy games, and even Final Fantasy 15, the last Final Fantasy game I played, and I bounced off of. I thought even there were more memorable characters just within your party and the characters that you meet in the early game.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think, not to bring Final Fantasy X into the discussion already, but yeah, when I think back of what I immediately think of my fondness for that game is I loved every single one of my party members.
Yep.
Like and they were all very unique. Waka looked way different from Lulu, which Kamari is this big blue dog looking thing. It's just, and they each had very vastly different personalities, and it does, I agree, it seems a little flat. Everybody's a little more vanilla in this one.
Yeah, and they're really chasing this Game of Thrones theme. Like, it's like oozing that Game of Thrones was a big inspiration for this. But they never do what Game of Thrones did well, and that is
Sex.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God, the sexual tension between Jill and Clive, God, it's just some of the worst. That's why Jill's just so annoying.
Yeah. Just
But
kiss already.
But characters are very nuanced, and their motivations are not what you expect, but it is. They're just complex characters. They're very deep. And this game just never gets there. And unfortunately, it just takes kind of the violence and the sex part, but that's just not that interesting, That's just on display. But you need more interesting and diverse characters to back that up. And unfortunately, it doesn't have it. So that's kind of a weakness of it. And then the lack of just dungeons in this game. Like, there is, I think, only 2 dungeons that I remember, and they're both pretty straightforward. There's no like puzzles. There's no unlocking certain rooms and then backtracking and unlocking more and leading to this final boss. And most of the game is just you're on linear paths, and most of them are in cities. They're mostly in cities that are getting attacked or something bad is happening. You fight your way through it. You get to the boss. It may end in an icon battle, may not. Get a trophy, rinse and repeat. You're thrown back into the world. You unlock X amount of side quests, X amount of bounties. They probably take you an hour to do, and then you're right back into the main story again. So that kind of loop is really weak. I wish there was like a big dungeon or like some kind of like end game. Like, hey, before you fight the final boss, there's this cool dungeon which actually has the hardest boss in the game in it. But there's none of that. There's not much depth beyond the combat. Yeah, just the combat. That's it.
Well, and to kind of piggyback off that, one thing that's been frustrating me a little bit in the game is, and we've mentioned it, but I can't believe it bugs me as much as it does. It's just the loot you get doesn't fucking matter. Like, every single time I come across a blue sparkly thing or a chest or whatever, so I was just like, yeah, you got 10 ashed magics. And I'm like, what did those even do? I don't even know what those do. And that's a little disappointing that, and maybe, if there were dungeons, like, if they're not filled with things that are going to make me have more fun or vary my playstyle, it's like, maybe I don't even want to go through this. And I'm just a little taken aback. Probably ties to the RPG lacking that we talked about on the show, with the way that the combat is built in this game. But they could have done a better job with that.
Yeah, and same with the side quests. Side quests usually just lead to weird combat encounters, and there are some good side quests later in the game. One of the kind of nice things it does is, like, you'll meet people, you'll do some side quests for them, and that story will continue in other side quests. Good. And some of those have better payoffs in the end. But still, they are very weak. They're very basic. They do just involve either talking to X amount of people, collecting X amount of thing, defeating X monster. You're never rolling with somebody else. You're never doing like an escort mission. Usually people are always either running ahead of you or disappearing, and then you have to fast travel to them. There's not really much about the world either. The world just serves to get to point A to point B.
Dude, the fucking cook guy that's at my base, it's like, if I have to go serve more dishes or go kill a scorpion so you can make some gross ass meal, it's bad.
Yeah. But those are the negative things. But again, the sum of the parts, it is a really, really good Final Fantasy game, and it's It will not overtake my favorite, but it is really solid. It's I would recommend, if you have a PlayStation 5, get this game. It is one of the standouts of the year, one of the standout games on the console. And so, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. It's
Does it have a chance 6 months from now to make the top 10 list?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay.
I'd say so.
Okay.
I mean, we did put Persona 5 on there, and I would say Persona 5 is a better JRPG. I definitely liked it more, but I wouldn't be lying if I'm telling people you got a PS5, these are the games to play. Yeah. I would tell you to play Final Fantasy XVI
just for the spectacle, of course.
The spectacle, how it showcases the console itself. Again,
it loads so fast, Nick. It loads so fast.
Yeah, which is great when it's crashing on you all the time.
Yeah.
Including it crashed after the final boss fight, so I had to do it all over again. But the final fight in this game is fun, to say the least. I had a really good time, so I did not have a problem playing it again.
Just a one word yes or no, Nick. Is the big bad? Is there a good payoff with the big bad? Okay.
It's okay.
All right. Okay.
But it's fun kicking his ass.
Good.
That's for sure.
Okay.
So, that's where I'm going to leave it. I definitely still want to do a spoiler cast. We'll just patiently all wait for John to complete it, and then we'll go into it and get his thoughts as well on the entire production. So, that's all I got to say.
Awesome.
If you're good, we can move on.
Yeah, just Kylie, let me play it. All right. So,
I'm next.
Yeah, so go ahead, Nick.
All right, so I'm going to bring a topic for my third and final thing. And, we've been talking about a lot about the fall games, and I wanted to get some easy predictions out there. A simple game to see how well we think we know the games that are coming out this fall. So it is 3 questions. They're all pretty straightforward. And the first question is going to be, John. Yeah, and John is our resident Nostradamus. He is without fail the most accurate predictor on the show. So
I randomly pulled up one of our YouTube videos for my mother-in-law the other day, and it was the Game Awards or whatever the showcase was after that. And you're like, whoa, do you got any other predictions? I'm like, nah, just doubling down on Final Fantasy Rebirth. I was like, man, you're a smart cookie, dude. I forgot I doubled down on that.
All right, so let's see if John can keep his hot streak going. So the first question I'm going to ask him is, what game this fall will be guaranteed to get above a 90, review 90 or higher, which is not easy. I don't even have the confidence to say Spider-Man 2 could do that.
I agree.
So, John, what do you got for me?
Despite that, I feel most confident about this one compared to the next 2 questions we'll talk about. Baldur's Gate 3.
That's a boondoggle.
Yep, will be above a 90. I wouldn't be surprised if it's above a 95. It looks so good. That studio has an incredible track record. Last game was a 92. Baldur's Gate 3 will be the highest reviewed game for the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's been in early access. They've had tons of time to, fine tune it, make it a really good game. The customization, the quest, again, they're a studio that knows what they're doing. You might as well say this is DaVinci Original Sin 3.
Right.
But so they're gonna kill it. So yeah, we're in agreement on that.
Awesome.
So we're
Real
both
quick,
getting this game. That's gonna happen.
I think so. I am scared. I don't know. I won't promise release week, but
yeah,
it's gonna be hard to ignore.
Yeah.
I will say I have because I always have more extra. Just throwing it out there. I think Armor. Do you have any others that you think will be above a 90 that you might not be so sure of? Like, what would be your next game that you would want to?
That I'd be very confident about.
Would it be Spider-Man?
No, I don't. I just have that weird feeling from the demo we saw that it'll be very good, but reviewers will not be as high on
8.5. A lot of 8.5s, a lot of 9s.
Yeah, it'll be high 80s, kind of like where Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart fell. So, I don't think it'll be above a 90. If it does, it'll just make 90.
Yeah.
I
think the only other one that I could see doing it that I'm pretty confident is Armored Core 6. I know you're not. No. I know you don't have the From Software faith that I do, but I think that game's going to be...
I wouldn't be shocked if that fell into our next question because...
You're a fool.
My next question is, which game this fall will get below an 80? So kind of John and I's threshold for good games is usually, especially if I want to buy it when really close to release, not take a chance on it, is 80 and above. So 80 is usually, 2 years ago, 3 years ago almost. I did this with Guardians of the Galaxy. It reviewed at an 81, played it, loved it. But if it had reviewed below 80, I probably would not have touched it.
Until you saw every post every 3 days say how good it is.
Yeah, when it came to Extra, a lot of people took the chance on it and loved it. So, and it is a very good game. Yeah, John, what game this fall is going to fall below that? Of all the big games.
You take this one first, Nick. You go first. I want to shout boondoggle at you.
Okay. I picked Alone in the Dark.
Oh, I wasn't picked that one. Okay.
This is coming from Pisces Interactive, who shockingly did a very, very good game. Their last game was Magicka 2, which is a very, very well-reviewed game. But this is kind of out of their wheelhouse. They have not released a game since, and that was in 2015. I have a feeling David Harbour will not save this game.
No.
He's David Harbour, the actor from Stranger Things, in the Gran Turismo movie, and in the MCU. Well, he's all over the place now.
Yep.
He will not save this game, and this game will be one of the worst reviewed games. I wouldn't be shocked if it was below a 70. So
What's the release date on this? Is there one?
it's the end of October.
Yeah. Good luck against Alan Wake 2. Sorry. Yeah. I mean, it's a good time to release that game, but yeah, I would agree with you, Nick. My answer is the upcoming game from Roll 8 Studios, Lies of P. This is a Bloodborne, Soulsborne knockoff that had a demo that I think people liked a lot. It's just until somebody else can do it, every time one of these kind of comes about, it's always pretty good, never what you really want it to be. You think Lords of the Fallen, The Surge, things like that. This one looks to be a little bit better than those. So I'm not entirely confident that it will be above or below an 80, but I if I were a betting man, I'd throw my money there.
Yeah, what did Wolong Fallen Dynasty get?
81.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
So I mean, I hope it's good. It's just, FromSoft. Well, yeah, I guess you don't think so because you think Summer Core 6 will be bad. But they just know these games so well, and I think it's harder to replicate than people think. But Lies of P, I think it'll be good, not great.
Yeah. And about Armored Core 6, I do think it'll probably be a good game. I just don't have the confidence to say. That game could be under an 80.
Well, because what did the fifth one get? It was 11 years ago.
Right.
It was like a 60-something, right?
Yeah, it was really bad.
Yeah,
so
we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And then, and they've been very coy as far as footage of that game. So we'll see. All right, and that will move us into the final question of this topic is which game this fall will get delayed out of the year? So it will not be a 2023 game. It'll be a 2024 game. John, what do you got?
Recently revealed Helldivers 2, I think has for a couple of reasons, a hard time maybe hitting this year. This studio hasn't made a game since the first one, which came out in 2015. So it's a long time to be working on a game. And so, it might have been rebooted at some point during the project or whatever, but it does seem like it's had a long, not necessarily tortured development, but, they got some things to work out. And the fact that we just got a gameplay trailer, it still says it's coming out this year, but with no date stapled onto it, it gives me a little bit more pause. And then thirdly, Sony's already got their fall lockdown. Spider-Man's coming out. That's what's going to take up the oxygen. I think so. I mean, it's going to be so big. So it's just like for Helldivers to give it the time that it needs and give it a little bit of oxygen, it might just make a little bit more sense to come out, maybe more January. Seems like a good January game. I think that's when the first one came out. So with all those factors kind of together, I could see it easily slipping. The one thing that maybe would just, we don't know about it yet is maybe it is a day and date with Extra and it's November's Extra game. And it's like, okay, it's got a month. It's had a month since Spider-Man. I don't know. But just it has a seemingly small window of likely dates that it could hit or that it should hit.
Okay. Yeah, it looks further along, but yeah, maybe if they want the game to have some breathing room, they might say, hey, let's put it early next year and let it just be the talk of the town for January or February right now. I don't know. Maybe February it doesn't work. It doesn't want to go up against Suicide Squad. So,
I mean, that's the thing. We always have these conversations where it's like, oh, it's trying to get away from this game, and then it just, oh my God, now it's a week before Zelda. So it's like, you know, there's no guarantee that, you know, next February is not going to be insane like it was this year too. You know, we don't know yet. So.
Right. Yeah. All right. So I went for my game. I went for the last release game of the year, and that's Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. It is barely going to make it this year right now with its December 7th release date. I do think it will not make that, and it'll again just want that breathing room. You know, it already missed the movie already anyway, so it doesn't matter. So it'll enjoy some January, February, or March release date.
Yeah, I would. That's likely. I mean, you know, but I would say Ubisoft really probably would want to hit that date because breathing room. That's a great breathing spot. Like if you can hit December, you know, early December, I think they'll be able to own that whole month, you know, right? Because what else is coming out? But
yeah, but usually you're playing the myriad of games that came
October,
out the last
November
3 months.
onslaught, yeah.
The 3 months before, which I'll be doing for sure. So
Well,
we'll see.
hopefully, at least neither of us had Hollow Knight. You know, hopefully.
Well,
that gets
well,
I wrote it down.
you'll
Though.
be lucky if that is released in 2024.
Yeah,
that game
that's
is
right.
never coming out. I fucking
We
hate
canceled
that
it.
game.
All right. Those are your 3 questions, right, Nick?
Yep, that
Perfect.
was it. So we can move on.
All right. Lastly, folks, it's that time. It's the more exciting time of the month than the PlayStation Essentials, but we got our extra games for the month of July. So as we kind of established a little bit ago, we're not going to read off every single game. If you're curious about everything under the sun, go ahead and go to blog.playstation.com. You will find their list there. But first and foremost, I think this is a pretty weak month. You know, it's definitely one of the worst months I've seen. A lot of B-tier games, a lot of, you know, middling things that might just hit, you know, somebody specifically. But I did want to shout out two.
Okay. What's your first one?
First one is It Takes Two.
Yeah.
That is the big game coming this month. It's obviously the biggest game. So fantastic game of the year winner from the Game Awards last year?
No.
2 years ago.
Elden Ring, and then
Elden Ring. So 2 years ago, game of the year winner. Fantastic game. Nick and I played through it together. Highly encourage anybody with a girlfriend, anybody with a spouse, anybody with anybody, play through this game. It's one of the most enjoyable things you can do in front of a TV with another person.
Yeah.
Like it's special.
Yeah, just as we removed it from
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was in our top 10.
top 10 list, it had to come back. But yeah, as John said, we played it together. We had a great time. It probably overstays its welcome a little bit. It's just a little tad too long.
But it's still only, 10, 12 hours maybe?
Yeah. But very varied gameplay. You're always doing something different. One of my favorite moments is when I was flying a plane while John was on top, basically doing a fighting game with a squirrel on top of the plane. So that's just the level of silliness it can get to.
Yeah, you know, I hate this phrase because Game of Thrones kind of ruined it, but subverting expectations. It's like you're playing through this game and it's like almost like a third-person shooter, and like you're doing zany things and it's great, and then with absolutely no warning,
Yeah,
it's just
right.
like it's not Nick's explained it correctly, but like not only was I fighting a squirrel, but like the health bars popped up just like a
Right.
fighting game does, and it's like all of a sudden it's this hilarious. I'm fighting a squirrel on top of a plane, and I won't spoil it, but there's a part with a stuffed animal that's very memorable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, Nick. I wouldn't be opposed to one day returning to this game and doing another playthrough. You know, as the other, because another neat thing that this game does do is you either play as the wife or the husband, and they each have a different skill set.
Yeah.
So you can easily get your replay value out of it. You know, and we can maybe get that platinum. You know, because we're a little closer to platinum. And but yeah, It Takes Two is pretty awesome. Check it out.
Yeah. Very, very good game. And that's a boondoggle. I was going to bring that too, of course. The other one, this is an interesting one because it's not a game we played, but it's just a weird game that I've just had my eye on it, and maybe it's aesthetic. I might have a problem with a cyberpunk aesthetic.
You do.
But it is The Ascent from Neon Giant, and again, it reviewed at a 73 at the time because it was very buggy. I'm assuming that most of that has been fixed, and the game is. But it's a top-down shooter where you can customize your character, you can play with your friends. yeah, it's what Helldivers 1 pretty much was, but now this is a cyberpunk version of that. So, maybe we're bummed that Helldivers 2 is third person, but at least we got this now. And I always wanted to check it out. And this is the highlight of Extra is checking out games that you normally wouldn't take the risk on. Like I didn't want to spend the money on this game, but now here it is. I'm going to check it out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I love twin stick shooters, man. I mean, this gives me major Housemarque vibes, Dead Nation, Alien Nation, things like that.
Yeah.
And I remember when this game was revealed because it was Xbox exclusive for, I think, a year. It was like the one game that was announced where I was like, fuck, I want to play that. It looks so good, like just graphically. And I did actually check it out a little bit on my Xbox, admittedly probably for only 5 to 10 minutes. And I wasn't the biggest fan on how it felt, but this is one of those games where I feel like every time I see a post on it online or somebody talk about it, they're like, oh, no, I really enjoyed that game. It was a ton of fun. So, yeah, I'm down to go Cyberpunk with you, bro.
All right, yeah. Well, we'll do it.
Cool. And then I have one other one. I won't go in depth because we've talked about it a lot on the show. Undertale is coming for free. If you like quirky, weird indie titles, it's worth checking out. It's super short, about 5 hours to beat. It's not for everybody, but you should check it out. I think it's sitting at a 92 on OpenCritic, so it's obviously high quality if it clicks with you.
Yep. And it did not click with me, so
Nope.
I did not bring that one. But yeah, again, perfect place to check it out.
Yeah.
And then finally, on the premium side, just in time for this television show that John is very excited about, Twisted Metal 1 and 2 are available. And again, these are OG PlayStation staples. This is an OG PlayStation franchise. If you want to check out its roots, it probably doesn't hold up very well visually. A lot of those PlayStation 3D games.
No, they don't.
PlayStation 1 3D games do not hold up very well, so I'm sure this will just be the same. But at least you'll have some context for the show when you watch it in 2 weeks, so you can at least play these and then check out the show.
Play these and be like, I have no idea what to fucking expect for the show now.
So, yeah, that's all I got.
That's all I got. It's like I said, pretty weak month. There's some weird fighting games, some like romance games, Sniper Elite, things like that. But check out It Takes Two, Ascent, and Undertale, and Twisted Metal at the very least.
Yes. So, all right. Well, that is 6 things. We did it again. Do we have anything to tease for next week? If we can get the Ascent done, we could maybe talk about that, but not likely in just a few days. But
it's not happening.
Yeah.
I gotta play Final Fantasy, man.
Yeah. You do.
No. I mean, I'm focusing on that. I'm excited Nick and I were going to go see Oppenheimer at the 70mm IMAX screen. Can't wait to see Cillian Murphy's huge dong up on screen. It's going to be great.
And we'll bring it to the show because this is a video game. This is a movie podcast.
Yeah, we'll talk about it if we're really stretching topics. But no. It's just like last week, Final Fantasy for me when I can.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So when I beat Final Fantasy, that question entered my brain is like, what game do I want to play next? And I think I'm going to take a break. And I know I just talked about the Ascent, but last year I beat a total of 18 games. And I've already told John this. And this year alone, I've already beaten 15 games. Mm-hmm. So I've been
got a problem, dude.
Yeah, I've been going at a killer pace. Not
all those Persona 5.
Yeah, one of those games was Persona 5, and that is like 10 games. Yep. So,
what the heck? That one game's worth 10 eggs or 10 games.
And as we talked about this fall, like I'm probably getting Baldur's Gate 3, and that's just going to take up all my time, and that's going to go into Cyberpunk, into Spider-Man, into Alan Wake 2, and all these other games that I want to check out that I really just need to take a breather. I need to
read a book,
focus on other things. Yeah, read a book, get some
Touch
projects
some grass,
done at home.
nerd.
Yeah, get out more. No, just let my PlayStation breathe and relax for a little bit. It's been churning out all these games that I've been playing. Just sit back, maybe dip into Spider-Man, but Street Fighter 6 here and there. But no,
didn't they just unveil a new character for that?
Yeah, there's Rashid is coming July 24th. But
cool.
So just take a breather on video games. It's always good to kind of pace yourself. This podcast kind of puts a little more pressure than the normal pressure addiction I have to playing video games. The show provides an additional pressure on top of that, and that does obviously is shown. But also, this was a banger year, of course.
Yeah,
so.
it's an all-timer.
So I've just been trying to play everything, catching up to all the Resident Evil games so I can play Resident Evil 4, stuff like that. So
it's a really good feeling when you genuinely want to play video games, and if you don't have that feeling, there's no shame in walking away.
Yeah,
because that feeling will come back when it's ready.
Right.
It's not gonna not.
And you mentioned this just a few weeks ago after you finished Elden Ring. Is like after you finish like games like that, like after finishing Final Fantasy 16, it's like I want to go play another experience like that. But John and I are usually so up on games. It's not like I can just be like, well, I catch up and play God of War Ragnarok. It's like, oh, I already did that.
Yeah. Every boss fight you encounter for a while is gonna suck. It's just not gonna. It's not gonna scratch that itch.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna take a break. I'm definitely gonna keep an eye out. I mean, again, it's not gonna take long. September will be here before we know it, and Baldur's Gate 3 is kicking that off, and
Armored Core 6 is gonna fuck with me.
Yeah. So we'll also get though next week. Exo Primal will be out, and John's faith in Capcom will be tested. Is he a Nostradamus again? Will it be an 83 and above for Exo Primal?
I don't know, but I sure hope so. I doubted Capcom with Street Fighter 6. I won't make that same mistake.
That game will be out by the time you listen to this.
Although I will say, it's the day before release. We have no reviews. That's almost always a bad sign. So
yeah. And again, it's a day one Game Pass game, which is also a bad sign. So we'll see. We played the demo. It wasn't our thing, but I mean, it was a very polished game. So if they can keep it fun, keep the variety, the single player is good. Maybe John's right. Maybe Capcom is a hit every time.
Should have been free to play. Should have been free
to play. It will be soon, I bet. So yeah, we'll have that. We'll definitely talk about that. But it's summer. It's cooling down. We're probably gonna bring more topics, more questions. If you have any questions, we'll definitely take them. That is a guarantee to get read on the show if you send in any question. Again, PlayStationPalsPod@gmail.com or through Twitter or YouTube. We'll talk about it. So if you have a topic of your own or some thoughts on any of the things we talked about over the last few weeks, let us know. Let us know you're out there. So.
Ditto.
All right, so let's go with the song. So the song this week is from Final Fantasy XVI. There being a bunch of butts and slowly releasing the soundtrack to that game, which is incredible. Like, I want to get to the battle music. The battle music is so good. And I want to bring it on this show.
It is.
But they did bring another one of the excellent tracks, and this kind of plays in a lot of the final boss fights of the current arc you're in, and that is To Sail Forbidden Seas from Masayoshi Soken. Again, another song we brought, Find the Flame before. It's another track. It's great. It's epic. It's big. It has some calming moments. It's got, I think you said, the grunts, the orchestral grunts that you get. That just, any song that has that is epic. So enjoy that. Again, thanks for listening. We love you guys. We'll be back next week with 6 more things. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.